Hi everyone, it's Hannah, and I'm one of the 7th grade girls leaders, and I will be giving the devotional for this week. And so last week we talked about how the Israelites crossed the Jordan River, just like how they did the Red Sea. And Joshua talked about how God is so powerful that he's done things once and he can most definitely do it again. And so I'll be continuing the whole Bible story this week with the story of Ruth. And for just a little bit of context, Moses and Joshua were kind of like the first two leaders for the Israelites, and then came a series of leaders called the Judges. The Judges kind of helped figure out different problems for the Israelites, but this was kind of a dark time. And especially in the beginning of the story of Ruth, Ruth chapter 1 verse 1 reads, "In the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land," which means people weren't getting enough food. And so there was a man named Elimelech, and he took his wife, Naomi, and his 2 sons to the country of Moab. And so they went to Moab and they started a life there. And the 2 sons married 2 Moabite women. Their names were Orpah and Ruth. And so, they were able to start a new life in this country. But then a series of unfortunate events kind of occurred where Naomi's husband passed away. And then about 10 years later, Naomi's 2 sons also ended up passing away. And so now it was just Naomi and her 2 daughters-in-law. And soon Naomi heard that her home country, which was Bethlehem in Judah, finally had enough food and it was good to live there again. And so given that she had lost some of the closest people in her life and none of her other relatives lived in Moab, she decided to head back to her home country. And so she told her 2 daughters-in-law, hey, thank you so much for being with me all these years. It's going to be really difficult for you if you come back to my home country with me. And so you are free to head back to your families in Moab. And so Orpah, she heard this news and she said, okay. And then she said farewell to her mother-in-law. But Ruth actually responded in a very surprising way. And I'm going to read that. It comes from Ruth chapter 1 verse 16. And it reads, "But Ruth replied, 'Don't urge me to leave you or turn back from you. Where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God.'" Wow, that is wild. Because just considering the position that Ruth would be placed in, she would be an unmarried foreign widow in a strange country. And so I think she has every right to be able to remain in Moab and kind of allow her mother-in-law to return back to her country. But I think she had this great compassion and loyalty and love for her mother-in-law and just saw that she was going through an incredibly difficult and sorrowful time, and just decided to be there for her. And that is quite amazing because I don't know, I think if I were in that situation with Ruth and Naomi, I don't know if I'd be able to follow my mother-in-law to a strange country. But yeah, it is a great demonstration of kindness and God's faithfulness to the people around her. And we also saw another example of ways that people showed God's faithfulness to people around them, with Joseph. And despite the fact that his brothers literally sold him into slavery, later on he didn't hang on to that bitterness, but rather saw the ways that God was powerfully working through him. And so in a time of famine then, he saved his father's his whole family, in fact. And so a couple things to consider that thinking about, in our lives when we've been through very difficult times, what are the ways that people have really showed us kindness, and what are the things that they've done that really touched us? And on the other hand, when we've seen people in moments of great sorrow or sadness, what are the ways that we showed compassion, or what are the ways that we could have shown great consideration for them? And so the point to really start thinking about for this week is that during uncertain times, we can show God's faithfulness to the people around us. And so, yeah, consider that, and I will see you all again soon. Bye!